now, the news. It seems there's always news about Vincent van Gogh, and that holds true for this week. A compelling collection of Vincent van Gogh paintings of olive groves has come together for the first time as part of an exhibit at the Dallas Museum of Art. Van Gogh painted 15 plein air paintings of olive groves in the time he was a patient at the mental asylum just outside of Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. Of the 15 that we know he painted during this time, 12 are included in the exhibit. The other 3 are held at institutions where the donor specified that the works were to never travel. Bringing the paintings together has provided researchers an opportunity to closely examine the works individually and as a group, which has resulted in some surprises. Painting plein air with such thick impastos was an invitation for things to find their way onto the paintings. One of the paintings revealed a blade of grass among the impasto. Another revealed a 2-inch long trail of footprints from an insect. But most surprising was the difference in colors between 2 images that should be practically identical. Both olive groves match, the skies are identical, one has a pair of harvesters that the other doesn't. But the big difference is that one has rich, warm reds on the ground throughout the composition, while the other is rather gray. The difference is tied to what is called color fastness, which is a measure of how sensitive a particular pigment is to fading. It appears that the pigments used were likely from cochineal insects and subject to fading. This is not uncommon with red pigments, and it's possible that the painting had been exposed to direct sunlight at some point, which would have exacerbated the problem. Van Gogh and the Olive Groves runs at the Dallas Museum of Art until February 6th of next year. In my recent conversation with artist Sarah Zucker, we discussed the benefits of being a prolific artist. In particular, if a masterpiece is a 1 in 1,000 work of art, maybe you need to make 1,000 pieces of art. That conversation came to mind this week as I read about the new Munch Museum in Oslo, Norway, which will house his life's work, which was donated to the nation upon his death in 1944. Edvard Munch is of course known for the iconic painting The Scream, but I think many casual art fans would be hard-pressed to name another painting by Munch. So, was The Scream a 1 in 1,000? Well, try 1 in 28,000. The massive 28,000 pieces that he left to the nation of Norway has moved into a new 13-story museum and research space overlooking the harbor in Oslo. After almost a dozen years of starts and delays, the new museum provides a safe new home for the paintings, drawings, sculptures, and prints by the iconic Norwegian artist. The country moved to finance the massive project after a high-profile theft of one of his versions of The Scream at the former Munch Museum in 2008. The piece was recovered, but it was obvious the collection needed a new home that provided adequate space and security. Have you ever forgotten about that $4 million Warhol that your ex-girlfriend gave you? No? Well, me neither. But not Alice Cooper. Turns out the rock legend had a swim through New York on his way to superstardom and became friends with Warhol back in the Studio 54 era. It sounds like Andy liked the surreal nature of Cooper's shows. Cooper's girlfriend in those days was Cindy Lang, and it turned out she was connected with the large circle of friends, employees, and hangers-on that surrounded Warhol. It was in those days that Lang had one time given Cooper a Warhol disaster print of an electric chair. But those days can be a little hazy to recollect for Cooper, if you know what I mean. So the print stayed out of sight for decades, as Cooper tells the story. Quote, "One day I was talking to Dennis Hopper when he was still alive, and he said he was selling a couple of Warhols, and I remembered mine and said, I think I still have a Warhol somewhere. So I went digging around looking for it. Well, it turned out the print was in his garage in the tube that it came in. If you go 40 years without opening a gift, you can probably handle parting with it. So the print is going to auction later this month in Arizona and is expected to bring in $2.5 to $4.5 million. So, is there anything interesting in your garage? That's all the time we have for this week. You've been listening to Art Sense. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe, and while you're there, please rate the show and leave a quick review. Your feedback is the key to other folks finding us. If you'd like to see images related to the conversation, read a transcript, and find other bonus features, you can go to nft-art and click on the podcast tab. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can email me at craig@canvia.art. Thanks for listening.